In this chapter, we're looking at how to record with Audacity. But before you can do so, you have to be familiar with your computer's input capabilities and how to route the inputs into Audacity. Now, nearly all computers, especially desktop PC computers, have ports for audio input and output. On PCs, you'll usually find an audio input port, an audio output port, and a microphone port. In most cases, the input port is blue, the output port is green, and the mic port is pink. On the Mac side of things, Apple has pretty much removed the audio input port from all of their computers, with the exception of the Mac Mini. You'll find the audio input and output ports on the Mac Mini, although they are getting rarer in the newer machines. The input port has the symbol with the two triangles pointing at each other, and the output port has a headphone icon. But my recommendation is to not use the audio input ports of your computer at all if you can help it. First of all, depending on what type of device you need to hook to your computer, you're going to need a variety of adapters. There are many different types of cables for things like microphones, guitars, and keyboards, or maybe you want to convert old vinyl records to MP3s. You'll need to figure out how to connect the record player to your computer. It can get complicated, and on top of that, the audio input port on most computers isn't that great for good audio quality. So instead, you should consider purchasing a USB audio input device. A USB device will give you a cleaner digital signal as opposed to the analog sound the input ports on most computers will give you. Plus, a device like this, and in this example, we're looking at the M-Track audio input device from a company called M Audio. Devices like this contain ports that allow you to connect standard microphones and instrument cables without the need for additional adapters. Even if you only want to record basic voiceover audio with a microphone, you might want to consider a simple USB headset mic like this one from Plantronics. Or if you're converting old records, you'll find it easier to connect a USB-based turntable instead of stringing together a series of cables to connect a traditional turntable to your computer. The point is, using a USB-based device is going to sound better, and you'll also be able to use it with any computer, since all computers have USB ports, but not all of them have audio input ports. So the first step is figuring out what types of inputs your computer accepts and what devices you want to record sounds with. After that, you have to figure out how to get those sounds routed into Audacity. I'm going to open up Audacity. That opens up a new blank project. Now we'll talk about setting up a project shortly, but for now, I want to focus on getting audio into the program. I'm going to go to Audacity Preferences. If you're on Windows, go to Edit Preferences. And here under the Devices category, you'll find the Recording section. And this is where you can select the devices from this menu. Audacity should recognize any devices you have connected to your computer, so what you see here on my screen and what you see on yours is going to differ unless by some weird coincidence you have the exact same gear I have. In this case, I'm going to select a USB device I have connected to my computer called the USB Pre 2, but you would select whatever device you're recording to. So if, for example, you were recording to your computer's built-in microphone, you would select that from this menu. Now while you're in here, you may also want to set up the playback options. In some cases, the devices you're using may have its own headphone jack that you can listen to playback through, or you may want to use your computer's built-in speakers or the built-in output. It's entirely up to you, but this will determine where the sounds from Audacity will be played through so you can hear them. In this case, because of the way I'm recording, I'm using a technology called Soundflower, which I need to leave selected so you can continue hearing my voice. But once you've made your selections here, click OK. You can test your input and check your levels by clicking once on the input level meter, which is the one with the microphone here. So I'm just going to click once inside the meter, and now I can start talking and I can see my levels. Hey, this is me testing the levels of the microphone. So you can see the levels moving as I speak. So while checking your levels, you want to make sure they don't hit too far to the right of the meter, which usually means your audio is going to be distorted or blown out. If you start seeing red over here, like if I start talking a little bit louder, you can see it's getting yellow and then orange. If you start seeing red, that's telling you that your levels are probably too loud. Now, depending on the input device you're using, you may or may not be able to adjust your levels from here in Audacity. With the device I'm using, it has its own input level dial, which is a physical dial on the level itself that I can turn to adjust how much signal is going into the computer. So you notice I can't move this input slider here in Audacity. It's completely grayed out. But if you were to switch to another input, and I should point out that you can actually do this without going into Preferences from this menu here, and if I were to choose, say, the built-in microphone, which I'm not going to do at this point, I would be able to adjust the levels here in Audacity. Alright, so that's how we route our audio into Audacity and set our levels. We'll get into this with a little more detail in upcoming movies.